Okay, I just want to take a minute here to talk about something that's important. We're going to be double checking this again later, but one of the things that we have to do before we put the timing belt back on is to make sure that we have the engine at top dead center. I like to just set it at that before I take everything apart so that I have a good starting point. I know I'm close when it comes time to put it all back together. Now you'll notice I've gone and done that already. You rotate the engine counterclockwise using the, just put a 19mm socket on the crank pulley bolt and you can rotate the engine. Easiest to do when it's in neutral, wheels aren't spinning. So the crank pulley bolt, once again, it's just this one down here. Turn it, always turn it counterclockwise. And then you'll notice that, I'll show you the top dead center mark on the flywheel in a second. You'll also notice that the up mark on the camshafts is pointing directly perpendicular to the deck of the head. Sorry, not the deck, the top. Probably won't be able to see it on this camera, but there's also small notches in the side of the camshaft wheel pulley that you can see. We'll see it more clearly when we get that cover off. So I'm just going to walk around the vehicle here, around to the top dead center mark, and I'll show you what it looks like. The mark looks a little bit different on automatic transmissions, but it's definitely noticeable. Pull this light out of the way. So you can see that I've removed the plug from the access port, and then if we look in there, you might not be able to see it on the camera, but you can just see there's kind of that white cross symbol, and it lines up with a metal kind of point that's inside there. That means that the engine's at top dead center. And we're going to be setting that again later, but good starting point. The other thing that you can actually do during this step, just walk around again, is Honda put these small holes. You can see it right in the center of the screen. And they're actually slots for 5mm punches that you can sink into the camshaft and lock it in top dead center for the #1 piston. I couldn't find any 5mm punches at the tool store I went to. You may be able to, but it doesn't matter. You can just find any sort of pin that's basically the right size, and if the engine's at top dead center, we can put that pin in there and it drops right in, and that'll lock the camshaft in place. Do it on the intake side here as well. There. And that'll help us later on. Obviously we'll remember to take those out. So this brings us to an interesting point in the whole procedure, and that is with the power steering and the alternator belts off, the valve cover off, we're ready to get the timing belt out. And to do that, we know that we have to take the main pulley off. So what you'll see is, and this is the view that you would get if you've removed your splash guard. If you haven't, then there's an access hole that you can open up to get in here. Is we see in front of us the crankshaft main pulley special bolt. If I could have $1 for every time I've seen people write onto Prelude forums and say, help, help, my pulley bolt is stuck, I think I'd be a very wealthy man. These seem to, for whatever reason, get seized very, very frequently. They're installed pretty tightly to start with, particularly if anybody has ever done work on the car. They might have used an impact hammer to put it back on. And then of course they're low down in the engine, near the wheel well, and they're subjected to all types of dirt and grime and corrosion, and what we get usually is something that's seized up. So you can get your anti-seize on there, or sorry, not anti-seize, something to free the seize, you know, a spray of some sort of penetrating spray to help loosen it up. But at the end of the day, what seems to work most consistently is to use an impact tool of some type to get it off. You can try using a ratchet or a breaker bar to loosen it, but if it's seized, you know, you might run into problems even doing it that way. You know, quite simply, there's nothing that can really match the torque potential and also the powerful vibrations that are delivered by an impact wrench. So, good tool to have, I think, for this job. I mean, obviously you can try to get the bolt off if you want with standard tools, but an impact wrench with a high torque capability is really going to be, I think, the most reliable way to get it off. There is a tool that you can get that will lock into that hexagonal shape that's on the inside of the main pulley and lock it in place so that you can really reef on it with a breaker bar or something like that. I've seen them on eBay before. I don't have one, so I'm going to use the impact wrench. And like I said, as I've heard, that's often it's the way I've had success with it in the past, and it's the way most people seem to end up getting them off. So just know, going into this, that you may encounter a great deal of difficulty getting that off. It doesn't have special threads. It's, you know, you loosen it counterclockwise, but it's a big bolt, it's long, and it's got a lot of threads, so there's plenty of opportunity for it to get really seized and be a major trouble point for you. As I said, we're going to be using an impact wrench for this because I think it's a reliable way to take care of it. Obviously, before using an impact wrench, I think it's a good idea eye protection, hearing protection in, because they are noisy and can cause stuff to go flying. And of course, only use an impact socket. Don't put a chrome plated socket on an impact wrench. They can explode and send pieces flying all over the place. It's a 19mm socket that you need, and then just get right to it. Sure enough, it's seized. Give the wrench a break and try it again. Out it comes. You can take a look at it, and when you take yours out, just make sure that it's in good condition. I actually bought a new one of these as part of this job just when I made the order for parts. They're not that expensive, and given the strain that they can go through when you're taking them off, I don't know, I just figured it's not a bad idea to just replace it. The last thing you'd want is for the bolt head on this to snap off. The other thing you want to take note of as you take it out is the washer is meant to go on in a particular direction, so just take note of which that is. It seems to kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but taper inward on the engine side of it. So we're going to set that aside. We're done with that for now. And as I said, I will be putting in a new bolt when I put it all back together, but this one I think is in pretty good shape. It probably could be used again without too much trouble. There's no rounding on the bolt head. Threads are all in good shape. I don't think it was even seized that bad. So with that out of the way, we should be able to just grab the main pulley, and with a little bit of coaxing, it should come right off. Might take a little bit of work, And there. Main pulley is out of the way. Now, pay close attention when you get to this part. There's this little tiny key that's here. Don't lose it, because you need that to align the crankshaft pulley. So I'll just set that in the pulley where it's not going to get lost, and we'll use that later.